cultural differences. And if you've ever watched the movie Sergeant York, when York goes to basic training, he's talking to a fellow called the Pusher from New York City. And the Pusher asks him, "What language do you speak?" And York replies, "American." York was from the hills of Tennessee. That language didn't quite blend with those people who live in New York. Now, over the years, all of us have used some type of slang. We did this in school. I was telling her, with our exchange student would come and just say to this exchange student, "Let's go put the pedal to the metal and let her rip." You know what I'm talking about. We're going to get in a car, put the pedal on the accelerator, and down it goes, and we're going to rip down. These people developed their language so they understood each other. Now, many times we think people in the Civil War were not literate. If you really look at the Mason-Dixon line that divided the North from the South, if you lived in the North, 94% of you could read and write. If you lived in the South, 83% of you could read and write. We had better education in America than they had in Europe. Europe was only 46% literate. Here we're looking at 94 and 83. The problem we have is spelling. How do you spell words? A young man wrote home to his family, "I am not getting enough to eat." Enough. A-N-U-F. Enough. I don't think that's quite how we spell enough. Another one wrote home, "My family was as poor as a snake." Poor. P-O-R-E. I think he meant double O-R. So it was spelling. And the other thing is, and I brought this along, there was a family in the area of Gerald in Franklin County called the Dyson family. They sent 6 sons to war. One of them, A.B., was very literate. A.B. Was a school teacher, had formal education. So he's writing a letter home after the first battle he witnessed. Now, he wasn't in the battle, but he witnessed. Now, I don't think any of you would write your letter this way. And here's how he wrote his letter. "It is with great pleasure that I seat myself to write you a few lines to let you know that I am not killed or taken prisoner." But I can't imagine any of you sitting down and saying, "I'm going to seat myself down and with a pleasure to write you." Then he writes on, "Our boys had a powerful fight with the Feds," that's the Union Army, "and on the first day they drove them back at every point. But owing to the death of Ben McCullough and James McIntosh," those are 2 Arkansas generals, "we were compelled to retreat, but with no loss of property and but little loss of men. Our Missouri boys fought gallantly, and I was not in any engagement at all during the battle." Now, Mr. Dyson was in the infantry. I can tell you, of the 6 Dyson boys that went to war, only 1 came home. A.B. Dyson was shot in the wrist in the Battle of Corinth in October the 3rd or 4th, and the surgeon wanted to take his hand off because it had shattered some of the bone. He refused and did have limited use of the hand and went back into service 6 months later. And at the Battle of Champion Hill, he was shot, the bullet entered here and came out the back. He should have died. He survived it, only to die of diarrhea. Now, if they had a little Gatorade back then, everything would have been all right. So today we're going to talk about Civil War slang. And the thing here is, I tell people, I think the young men who were in the Army did this just to confuse their officers. In fact, if you were, Betty and I were talking to each other, and we looked over and saw an officer coming, she would say to me, "Here comes the bugger." That was the term for an officer. So what I would like to do today is give you a little handout, let you look through it. Now, I have added some stuff that really belongs to the Civil War in Cuba, the men. How I got involved in this, in 2014, the Harney Mansion was given a time slot to display the state of Missouri Civil War display. Well, as I told her, we only had one caveat that came with it. we had to do local history. What happened in Sullivan in the Civil War? You open up books and there's hardly anything there. Well, I realized Price came through here in 1864, so we added that. But I wanted to know when Price came out of Arkansas, not picking up recruits, I wanted to know were any men from Crawford County, were any men from Franklin County coming out of deep Arkansas with Price. I found 42 of them, 8 from this county and 34 from Franklin County. And every one of them, except one, survived. The one that didn't survive died in a prisoner of war camp. So we have local history. So I've added that local history to your paperwork for the day. So I'm going to be so kind to hand this out to you.